Welcome back, as always, beautiful people. My name is Tristan, and I will be leading you guys through, at least for a time, a very different aspect of our stream tonight, as we take on something that we like to call Insight Check. You see, normally we run things just straight into the game. However, tonight we're going to push the game back until after break, and we're going to answer some of the biggest questions that you guys have had for us throughout this stream. Now, with that being said, we are very, very excited to give you guys recap on, Session 0 stuff, things, lore drops from behind the scenes that you guys have never heard before, and really get to just kind of open it up to kind of an open forum formatting so that everybody here gets to ask each other whatever they want. If you have any questions, by all means, drop it into the comments. We will be watching, we will be reacting live, and we'll be answering whatever questions we can manage to fit in tonight. So please, guys, gather around, get comfy, and enjoy as we tell stories about the stories of legend as told by divine inspiration. Nice. That being said, everybody, time for an insight check.
Let's go, insight check.
Ooh,
come on now.
19.
Whoa, I got a
Are we allowed? We're allowed to use our modifiers. We actually.
Are we?
Let's keep it a flat roll.
Okay.
Just because I did roll and I don't
using
have
my
any
modifiers is the same.
Unless I play as Rumgar for
14.
14. Okay.
11. Ugh, yikes.
Mine's a 17.
Mine was a 6.
Actually,
so I'm definitely not winning that one. We've decided that whoever gets the best insight check will get the first question of the night. So
cool.
Ask or wait, do I ask?
No,
I think I should answer the first question.
You can also feel free to ask.
Ask and answer.
I'd rather answer. I don't want to start this off. Tristan's already is good on that.
Okay, easy enough. We do have a wide assortment of things, and we're gonna jump into a little bit of Session 0 stuff, but we heard it in part. But I want to start with a little bit of way back as far as your character is concerned, in terms of, tell us a little bit about how Calagon and Cleave met. Go into as much detail and from Calagon's perspective as possible.
Okay, so there I was, sitting on a beautiful hill looking at this pond. And this pond was a little outside of the farm. It's a place that I would go to because I'm not a big swimmer. So it's a place I would go to.
We actually just posted about this.
You did?
That's amazing.
Perfect.
We posted this short today.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
So it's a place that I would go to just to dip my toe in. It's not too deep and stuff like that. Well, one day I decided to go for a swim. And as I'm relaxing, meditating as I do or have done a lot, all of a sudden I get attacked from the back, and there's a scrimmage going on, and I get out of the water, or stand up, I guess I could say in a sense, and Cleave's there. I guess he thought I was an alligator, so
Look at him, I got him.
so
I'll
he decided to wrangle me because maybe he thought I wasn't where I was supposed to be, and he wanted to make sure. I don't know. You could probably go deeper in on that.
In the water, I think that's where you were supposed to be, isn't it?
Right? Oh, it's a small pond. Maybe he thought I was stranded and he wanted to take me back to.
Touche.
I don't know. Again, he could probably touch on that a little
Cleave
bit more.
actually had a little merry band of, like, I guess students. There was a bunch of kids that wanted to learn about nature, and they would ask him questions all the time, and then he would take them adventuring through the woods. He was pretty much a kid too. He was like 15. And
so there were kids there?
yeah.
I must have blocked that out.
You had an audience, which made it even worse. No, there's.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, he'd take him around, and he'd just sort of show him like any animals that he found, and he'd wrangle them so they could take a closer look.
Did they run away after I freaked out or something? Because I don't remember kids being there. But anyway, after that, I guess there was a storm brewing, and me and Cleave kind of laughed about it after it happened a little bit. Even though Calagon's not much of the humorous type, he thought it was funny. They laughed about it.
Cleave needed that.
Yeah. A storm was coming in, from what I remember. I asked where you lived, and you told me
In a tent in the woods.
Yeah, and I
Like I
said,
do.
I live on a farm nearby. Come hang out with me through the storm, and he stayed ever since.
Yeah. That was after we had known each other for just a little while, long enough that I think I already would have made you. Yeah, I made you aware, or Cleave made Calagon aware that he was homeless because a storm hit his town. His whole village was destroyed by a storm.
Wow.
Which I learned later that night. Yeah.
So it was very good of them to take me in because he doesn't do well in storms, I guess.
And that's how Cleave and Calagon Dör met.
So Spars on Twitch just said, "Oh my God, I just realized Cleave is Steve Irwin." Yes, they got
Good old
it.
Cleave Sterling, let's go.
Cleave Sterling.
Cleave Sterling.
Australian accent. Conservation.
It's so wild.
Good catch.
Wild
Because
conservation.
for us that we knew it ahead of time, I'm like, how could no one see it?
Right?
Right?
It's so
Literally
obvious.
him.
I'd have missed it forever, for sure.
It's him, but green.
That's so funny.
With no hair. Like,
little-
just a little
And-
pouch of hair in the front.
To be honest, I'm newer to D&D than everybody else at the table. And when Joel came at us with his idea, I've never seen anyone approach a character in that direction before. So it was hilarious because usually it's like, okay, what class, what, whatever. And
Yeah.
but no, he's like, I want to be Steve Irwin pretty much as an
but a
orc,
half orc.
but in reference a character from Lord of the
Oh,
Rings.
with essentially a nicer version of the voice. If you've ever watched Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, there's one orc who yells, "Why can't we have some mates?" And that's basically that's his voice. I wanted to be
Literally.
Steve Irwin with that guy's voice, and that's
And you
basically-
you
but-
snuck that in session 1 too,
I got
didn't
it
you?
in there.
Yeah,
I
you
made
snuck
it.
it in. Little Easter egg.
Go back and
I
Session one.
love that. I love
so
that
funny.
so much.
All right, now over on the other side of the table,
Oh god.
we've had some fun interactions in game that people have gotten to see so far with you two. But
Yep.
specifically, there was a quote from a recent session where Arlyn said, "Best 2 gold I've ever spent," in regards to Arlyn and Rodrick's relationship.
Oh no.
To which Rodrick said, "I've been meaning to speak with you about that. Do we want to go into that now, or do we want to just kind of hold off a little bit for that conversation in game?"
No.
more?
We can go into that. We
wait,
can
but-
start.
but
We can
hold
start the
on.
free Rodrick hashtag now.
No. Hold on. Why don't we talk a little bit about why don't we leave that for when our characters met, when we talk about that, because that's part of backstory, because once we started even the session zeros, you already knew each other, but we didn't. So that's pretty much how the
guy
group
who
stared forming. That was the first interaction
true.
of the
Yeah.
group. So
That's very true.
The guy who owns another guy's like, "Why don't we? No, we can talk about that later. We don't have to go over that right now."
listen, this is gonna make me look like a bad guy, but I got you out of that
There's
terrible
no way it makes you
situation.
look like a good guy.
But you're out of a
there's an
terrible
angle.
situation.
There's
You
an
own
Hello?
another being.
You know,
You know what?
That's debatable. We'll talk
Guys,
about it.
let's talk about that later. Let's talk about that later.
I was gonna
That's
say, what are the
hilarious.
situations on Barry and Rumgar then in that situation? Are we we're just claiming them as property since you guys continue
At
to try to
this
sell them
point.
off, get rid of them?
I mean, Rumgar, I don't know if he was super like embraced, but Barry is like a part of me.
Very nice.
He's choosing me. He can go at any time he wants. I'm surprised he hasn't after I sent him a couple places he probably shouldn't have been.
Are we gonna do a brief recap of like where we are
Oh,
to
yeah,
now,
totally.
so everybody
absolutely.
understands who these characters
Absolutely,
are?
yeah,
Okay.
I will say,
Yeah.
For sure.
how farmer of Calagon to find the first animal and go, I'm gonna take care of this animal.
Yep. He's like,
I'm
what do we
a
do with
farmer.
this?
I
Dude,
come
he
from
did-
a farm. I'm
he-
not much of a farmer.
You did
He also comes
everything
from
to
Purple
leave your
Dragon
farm.
Woods.
Everything. You're finally out of your farm, and the first thing you do
Is farming.
farm.
I guess second nature. I don't know.
All
That's
right.
hilarious.
Does anyone other
That's
than me
funny.
want to try to give a general world recap of what we've kind of planned out thus far?
I can.
Yeah, let's hit it.
I can do it. Okay, so, and this will, I guess, further explain our opener sequence as well, and some of the stuff that we talk about in that narration, because I'm gonna be completely honest, Tristan. The first time you explained it, I was lost.
Oh, so yeah, there's
So-
definitely a few things. Even now, like there
There's
might
a
be
lot
a
of
few
depth.
things that
Yeah.
it is a pretty rich world. And
Yes.
so even now, if there's anything just like slightly off, I'll jump in and just
Beautiful.
kind of see what changes need to be made. But otherwise, yeah, I know you've got a pretty solid.
Beautiful. Yeah,
idea of all
I
the lore and
asked a
whatnot.
lot of questions because if I'm doing a lot of the social recaps and like things like that, especially in our posts on Instagram and all that, I was like, I need to understand how this world works, I
Yep.
guess.
Yeah.
So essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? The continent is called Arendor, right? In a world that's called Alora. Now, in Arendor was originally all united kingdoms by one guy named Arendor, I believe.
Exactly right. So there were kind of different clans originally, and it was kind of just
Okay.
like this primal wasteland of sorts.
Got it.
Where each of these clans had some amount of power, and they were kind of coming to and really like forming their own structures and identities, if
Yeah.
you will, where
Okay.
Arendor kind of brought them together as one singular nation within this continent, and actually was later named after him.
Got it. Okay, so that happened, and was it peaceful?
Wait,
I
do we have
guess?
any idea?
About the original Arendor?
Yeah,
Or
like,
what?
do we have any idea, like, what was he also a dragon? Was he a
I don't
human?
think
Is there any
we
knowledge
would
of that?
know, right?
Do we know?
Unless we have history knowledge.
There is very little knowledge of that currently. For the record, I do keep them in the dark on a few things, being that they are country bumpkins. Pretty much every one of the characters
Not
is
me.
from
Well,
Manshire.
yeah, kind of at this point. I'm not
But
from
I was gonna say,
Manshire,
yeah,
but I'm
he's a
still
little-
pretty
he's a
country.
little
I lived in a
different
little
than
town.
To call me a country bumpkin.
A forest woodlands elvish bumpkin.
The countryest of countryest. Literally living in the country.
But so yeah, the general lore as far as what the characters would know is also a little bit, I'd say, less than the average population outside of Manshire, where Manshire is kind of a trade region along the coast that is surrounded by a just vast mountain range. And as the characters have kind of traveled a little bit, they've gotten to see a good portion of this mountain range now, where it seems to protect them from most outside threats. Within Manshire, the only real threats are minor creatures that are a little larger than usual, but also marauders that seem to be slowly trickling in from outside and making their way across through waterways instead now.
Got it. So, to clear one gigantic confusion in this world, which I think if I was confused about it and I got the in, then we should explain it. There are 3 Arendors. 3 Arendors. There is Arendor the continent, right? Arendor the continent, which is the whole region that we're playing in. There is Arendor, the original person who united this continent, whom the continent was named after. And there's Arendor that we refer to, which is the dragon who gave our characters our abilities, which we're going to get deeper into when we start talking about the campaign. But essentially, don't be confused. I'll try to make sure I explain which Arendor I'm talking about when I say the word. But yeah, so essentially, the clans were united, right? And it was like a united nation, Arendor. And then I believe there was a lot of giants, right? There was a lot of giant war against the humanoids back and forth, which I guess they were doing okay with, kind of.
Initially they were having a hard time. So like in
Okay.
the intro, in the recap, it talks about humanity being on like the brink of annihilation, essentially, where they were, as just the totality of mortal races, nearing extinction.
Okay.
And so it wasn't until they united under one banner that they were suddenly safer. And so
Got
those
it.
clans were kind of doing their best to hold off against the giants. After that point, once
Yeah.
the next threat came, then they didn't stand a chance.
Speaking of the next threat, right? That is kind of where our opener kicks off, right? Where a humongous horde of dragons came across the Great Sea, right? And so when they came, they infiltrated the continent Arendor. And, I mean, if giants were not pretty, a horde of dragons sounds like a beautiful sight, right? And so this horde of dragons started annihilating the continent. So all the clans built the 10 bastions, right? And the 10 bastions were these strongholds that they used to be able to fight off these gigantic threats. Not only the giants, but mainly also the dragons that were coming in. So I don't remember exactly how the bastions are set off, but is it kind of like a wall, like walling off the thing?
So the bastions are actually split. Now this is something that we'll get to see a lot more, hopefully very soon, maybe even partially tonight.
Ooh.
So I'm very excited to
That's
start to get
exciting.
to reveal
That
more
is
and more
exciting.
about the Bastions here and the 10 different kingdoms at large. But essentially, Arrendor, the nation, fractured back into some of those kind of stronger clans, and they instead started dividing themselves into cities where they took common people groups such as, we'll say, half-orcs and hobgoblins and similar kind of almost monstrous humanoid races, and they started creating allies and forming these different bonds of sorts where within that kingdom now they focused on their strengths. And so they understood that because of the unity that they had before, they now each had some sort of essentially superpower on their side. They had these bastions that they could take as their primary focus and say, well, hey, we're now really good at controlling our bastion. Nobody else is going to be able to step on us. We're going to hold off and see if we can do our own thing. Now, there are countless reasons for the division amongst the nations, as far as some for power, some for gain, some for, just trying to stay out of conflict entirely, and a wide assortment of different things, whether that be trade or, So we'll get to see a lot more of that as the story unfolds, but generally speaking, these 10 all agreed in unity that they weren't going to stick together anymore, with the exception of one. And that last bastion to the far east is just simply known as that. Within Crestview, there is the Outlook, known as the Last Bastion. This Last Bastion stands as kind of this beacon of hope within the center of this neutral zone.
Yeah.
And so all the nations do have this one place of meeting where they can go and hopefully not fight under the protection of this last bastion.
Wait, so that's not in Manshire?
That is not in Manshire.
Oh, I thought
To cross the
Manshire
continent.
was the last bastion.
No. Manshire is kind
It's like
of
a trade post, right?
It's a trading region of sorts,
Region.
where it is largely peaceful, but it's definitely not the same as with the Marauder raids and things of that sort. It's been locked down, especially as of late. So trade has been stifled. We got to see that a little bit with Calagon's family, actually.
Oh, true. When we talk about the
Way,
pre-sessions,
way,
we'll
way in the
go deep
beginning.
into that.
Yeah.
So we saw that trade in Manshire has been very limited in times recent, but notably especially with families like Calagon's.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah,
it.
actually,
Got it.
that's the beginning of Calagon's adventure, was because of the lack of trade. I live on a farm, cattle farm. We bring food to the market. People aren't buying it. Also, being dragonborn, we get discriminated against a little bit. The dragons coming
Everybody's
over.
afraid of
People
dragons,
are
yeah.
confused that we look like a little bit like a dragon. So when one of the pregame sessions, me and Cleave were down at the market with the family. We saw this giant rodent attack part of the market. And after we defeated the rodent, we harvested its food, and we used that food as potential food to sell and stuff like that. So we were actually, me and Cleave were on our way looking for where that rodent came from, so we can find possibly more supply for the market. And that's where we ran into Rodrick and Arlyn and a couple other
Which
crafty
this was a
characters.
beautiful
That
segue
painted
into
us
the
all in a great light.
pre-sessions,
Fantastic,
right?
yeah.
I mean, I
Lovely.
guess if we're already on Calagon and Cleave and in the pre-sessions, right? Because that's
Right.
kind of where the story started.
Yeah,
is
very
that
much
point.
so. It
So if
started
you
in
wanted
Calagon's
to
family house.
go deeper into like the character and also, I guess, the beginning of the actual pre-sessions and everything, you can go ahead.
You want
Just
me-
like
what do you
talk
mean?
about your family, I guess, right?
Okay.
Talk about how
Because that
much,
was a big portion of the pre-session. The first episode
That was
was
definitely
like,
the most like NPCs and stuff that we interacted
Correct.
with.
I guess
Not
so.
player
Yeah, I was
characters.
namely
gonna
how
say
much
that
you
was-
disappointed your dad and let your brothers down.
yeah, let's talk about that.
Wow. Okay. Where do I begin?
Because I mean, I guess for the viewer to understand, the first session we ever played was split in two parts, right? So we did the entire first half was just Calagon and Cleave, and then the entire second half was Arlyn and Rodrick, where it ended at the meeting point where we all met. So, yeah, take the stage. Let's talk about your side.
Okay. So it started with me, as a good story does, waking in my room, Cleave had already lived with. We've already touched on that. That Cleave lived with me
For 2 years at that
for
point.
2 years at that point. Yeah, so we've gotten to know each other pretty well. He helped around the farm. That's how I guess he got my parents convinced to stay. My mom's name is Katha. My father's name is Larong. Kath is very, motherly. Larong is not at all. He's very into the family business. He wanted me to be part of the family business. My older brother, I have two brothers. Dallin is my older brother. Guams is the middle brother. And Dallin is the typical father son taking over the family business, tries to get everything, tries to get us to participate more and stuff. But Calagon's always been shying away from that, not sure what he wants to do, but understands like in some sort of way that there's more to his life other than cattle farming. So one night during he would meditate a lot. He would try to pretty much use his subconscious to make decisions and stuff. And he one day he actually woke up from a thunderstorm, and I believe he heard a voice. Right? Let me see.
Voice calling out to him.
Yeah, he heard a voice calling out to him to head out to the farm. He went to the back part of the farm. Then he heard a voice saying, "Dig deep." So he began to dig for hours and hours until he hit the ground. Until he hit something into the ground that was a case that held a staff and a book. About 15 feet under the ground. He had no idea what it was for. He didn't understand where it came from, but he embraced the items, brought it back to his home, showed his family, but of course his family, trying to make him a farmer, buried those kind of aspirations and stuff like that.
Quickly.
Very quickly.
They were not about it in the
Yeah,
slightest. They're like, that's not going to help us with the dairy farming.
Exactly.
How are we gonna raise cattle with that? I mean,
With a
staff's
stick.
nice, but
No son of
Stick in a
mine's
book.
gonna read.
So one morning, we were heading to the market, like I said. Guams is, again, trying to do his best with the farm, but he is very...
Quam's is the best.
What do you say? He's very experienced. How do you say that?
He's lacking in experience in that way, but he's just
Inexperienced.
oblivious
Okay.
also. Like, he is...
Very, but he wants to
Poor
find
guy.
ways to participate, just not in the normal sense. So he makes like potions and stuff like that, or what were they?
Yeah,
They were
he
just
was trying his best to create new concoctions that could kind of help the farm.
Yeah.
And I think the latest that we touched on as you were kind of
They
leaving
were like
that area,
smoothies, right?
he
Close.
was doing.
Yeah, it was
he was
accurate.
trying to make non-dairy milk concoctions using ingredients that had nothing to do with their dairy farm.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the fourth wall break of creating non-dairy like no milk used type of drink stuff?
It's like the fact that I may or may not be lactose
First off,
intolerant, and
David can't
David's
have
got, like-
any
yeah, exactly.
like protein and milk at all.
I can't have dairy.
Yeah.
Tristan can't have dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it touches home a little bit.
No, wait. Is,
so
is
we
that
love
all we're touching on?
Guams.
Or we're not gonna talk about the fact that's you. Basically,
That's literally Tristan. That's what I was going about.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So you and Guams have a lot in common.
Oh
I didn't-
yeah,
I
for
didn't
sure. For
realize
those
He
of you
is
guys,
Guams.
who don't know yet, I'm trying to start my own boba tea shop that is going to be entirely lactose free.
That's
So
awesome.
snap.
yeah. I'm basically just Guams here.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here like, guys, please, lactose free. I swear it's still good. And everyone's like, shh, no, don't do it, please.
Yep. So
That's
actually, that day at
hilarious.
the market when the rodent came and destroyed a cart, and we took on that, Guams was with a woman across the market, which the name slips my mind.
man,
I
yeah.
have her in
I'd
my
have to-
notes.
Do you have her in
I
the
was gonna
notes?
say I would have
Yeah.
to pull that back. Let me see.
But I guess
Yes, Karagi. It was that.
Karagi. And they were,
her
like,
mother
working
was
together.
Kawami.
With an R? Oh no, her mother is Kawami.
Yeah, so
Okay, I have mixed them both into one character named Kawaki.
that is, I believe, a Baruto character.
Amazing.
Love
We're
it.
gonna have to scrub that part from the feed. Sorry.
So I guess he was working with her to create some concoctions and stuff like that.
Karani?
And they were super excited about that, and I was kind of curious on where that was going. But after the incident with the rodent, we pretty much took off and haven't looked back since, heading towards a big cavern, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
And Cleave was just pretty much by my side the entire time during this morning that everything occurred.
I had been sent on a mission by man, I already forgot his name. You just said it. By Dolan.
Dallin.
By Dolan.
Mm-hmm. Dallin's the oldest.
So I had been. Oh wait, no. So I got the wrong guy. Never mind. That was. Oh, it was Guam's. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Guam's.
Yeah, Guam's.
Yeah,
number
I've been
one.
sent by Guam's with a request to talk to who was that? Pappy.
Pappy.
To go talk to Pappy.
Go
Pappy was
talk
a
to
really
Pappy.
old turtle man. Yeah. So he just wanted to convince him to take some of his stuff, and he was just like, "Look, just because I like you guys, I'm gonna take them. I'm not buying them. I'm not selling them." But yeah, he was just trying to sell some of his concoctions. I'm trying to help everybody at the farm out that I can, so that I'm not just a hobo, just mooching off of them.
I'm hoping one day we go back and Guam's has just changed everything, just reinvented
I really
the
want
market.
to
imagine?
And that would be. There's a whole separate non-dairy side of our farm business now.
Love it.
That'd be so cool.
Selling the
I
milk-free
wonder if we'll
milk
ever
tea.
go back.
Pappies and Guams.
I wonder if I'll ever make it back.
I love
Pappies
that.
and
I
Guams.
love that.
Dude, yeah, Pappy and Guams were definitely some of the best so far. Those two were personal favorites because
Yeah, Pappy was a highlight
honestly,
for me.
Nick, your role play in all of Session 0 with the family, with Guams especially, and just like the way you brought them to life was definitely like that was some of my favorite D&D moments of all time for sure.
That is
It was,
awesome
it was
to
also
hear.
super cool because that was the first time as a group we had ever played together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were discovering our styles and everything too.
I was hoping to go into that for a second really fast because under our notes here, we were talking about how our characters met, but also how we met.
That's
So
good.
his roleplay episode 1 blew me away because we tied our characters together because I thought that would be fun because I didn't know him at all. we didn't.
That's
we're the
true.
Only people
That's
at
true.
the
Yeah,
Yeah,
the only
that's
people on the table that did
Basically,
not know
like,
each
with
other
no
at
knowledge,
all.
yeah.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Manny and David are brothers.
Yep.
Mhm.
Tristan and I are brothers. And then we were
Then there's
strangers.
me.
We're basically bandmates because we play at church together,
right.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
And then I've known them from like random circumstances
Really?
at D&D.
Yeah.
I
You
was
know,
gonna say, yeah, church, D&D circles, and just,
literally
like,
friend
Yeah.
circles,
Yeah.
like mutual friends, all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So like that was the only interaction that like they had never even like met each other before.
And I'm super grateful that you came up with the idea to do that because that's
It was so
definitely
good.
It worked
added
so
to
well.
our
And it's
friendship.
made us tight, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It
Yeah.
connected you guys for sure.
Yeah,
And
it was great.
honestly, yeah, I love the relationship between the two characters so
Me too.
much that like
I'm surprised.
like Cleave just like the biggest fangirl of like Calagon. He's, oh,
Me
yeah,
too.
like,
I love it.
you know.
I kind of wanted. Actually, I was going to tell you guys about this before we even started, but my idea for what Calagon was supposed to be, and you guys all heard it, very stoic, very non-emotional. Being Cleave's right-hand man makes that impossible. I can't be stoic and like, and maybe now that we're in this new area, when we start the session this evening, you'll see maybe him shut down because we're around other people. But when it came to my idea of what Calagon was going to be all the time, to now having Joel right next to me, just making jokes, backing me up, it's super hard.
Backing up
to
anything
keep-
that he does.
It's so hard
it's
to be
gold in
that
my
guy.
But you
eyes.
know what? I think you're doing it well, though. Like, I think
for
you're doing
sure.
it well
Dude.
because
It
I
blends.
feel like Calagon's character still has like the essence that you originally wanted, where he is obviously the more serious one, obviously the more like, all right, let's just get this over with.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that kind of character. And Cleave is so the opposite that I feel like you guys balance each other out, so it makes sense that you're best friends.
Well,
you know?
the first session, it started with me like kind of being a little harsh, I guess you would say. But I felt bad. Like I loved his character so much, and he's like talking me up a big game. So like me being negative towards him or just like kind of shutting him down, I felt bad.
I feel like there's a slight embarrassment that Calagon has towards
all it is.
Cleave,
That's
though.
all it
It's
is.
just, he's a little bit
Yeah,
embarrassed by
pretty
Cleave.
much.
It's just a lot.
Pretty much.
I hope at some point we just talk a little bit about like role-playing games in general for anybody that's completely new to that space. But generally in most role-playing games, whenever you make your character, one aspect of it is just writing down their personality. It has nothing to do with like their abilities and special stuff. My favorite part, I should say, is just writing down like personality traits. And I wrote a ton of them, but let me see if I can find the one. One of my favorite ones that I have is, I think it's under my bonds. Here we go. And I want to start releasing videos of just these personality traits, but one of my favorite ones is Calagon Dör is the coolest, best guy around. He can do anything he sets his mind to, and I will do anything he sets my mind to.
That's so good.
That's the level of follower that
That
Cleave
is
feeling.
so good.
Yeah.
That is so good.
So-
I mean, we had a question from Spars again on Twitch, which was about the man behind the computer.
Yeah. That's Nick's brother.
Yeah.
That's Nick's brother. No. So Javi is a childhood friend from Manny and David, from me and David.
I didn't
And so down in Miami and the
Yeah, we were just
music
talking about
scene,
this. We've known each other
Stop.
for 12 years now.
Yeah.
This is news to me.
Yeah,
didn't know
literally.
that?
For
I
about
didn't know that.
12
That's so
years
funny.
we've
About
known
12
each
years.
other.
Yeah.
And then eventually he ended up moving over to Central Florida, and we stuck together basically.
Dude, that's so
why
cool.
don't you come say hi, Javi, real quick? Get off the table. Come on. That's what Inside Check is for, right?
I was
Yeah.
trying to like get behind
Yeah,
it,
you're-
get up
you're the
from behind the
real
table.
There you go.
Come
my spot for a second
You can
instead.
take my spot.
There you go. That's how.
Dip down a little bit.
What's up, everybody?
There you are. Yeah.
I guess
Oh,
she's
man.
talking to the mic.
He's not good at this yet.
Yeah, he's still learning how to talk into microphones.
Yeah.
Javi's actually their brother. I just learned. That's crazy.
Yep,
How's
yep.
what?
You actually their brother. They're
I mean,
three
12 years
Yes.
might as well be, right?
Closer,
It's great.
Yeah, closer to you guys than.
And you're not just like, you didn't just start doing this for us. You have a background in production and stuff too, which has
Yeah,
been a
yeah.
blessing for us.
Right.
Yeah. So that's exciting. Yeah.
And a little bit in D&D as well. All right, so in like role playing.
Very little bit.
He did play one character. I don't know if we want to talk about that character.
It's like 2 or 3 months of a backstory there, but I'm not gonna get into it. You guys can do it if you want to,
I
but I
think-
don't blame you if you don't.
If I remember correctly, it went back to poker night pretty quick, right?
Yeah. Okay, I'll say one thing about his character, just so that you guys understand what his character was. His backstory was that he wants to find his wife and children.
No.
Right? Because he got hit in the back of the head
Very good.
and then stolen by orcs. Right?
He was stolen by
He was
orcs.
stolen by. He was kidnapped.
Very good.
So his whole thing is, hey, what's your backstory? Oh, I'm just trying to find my wife and children. About a year in, we were in a bar, and he fell in love with the barmaid. And we asked him, hey, bud, what happened to your wife and children? And he had completely forgotten about the backstory.
It was a hard hit to the back of the head.
Gave him amnesia.
That's what I was like, Javi, what is this character?
Yeah, I don't know,
At least
bro.
stay true with the.
Those rascally barmaids. I'll tell you what.
Oh, so funny.
Actually, I wanted to say,
so funny.
while he was still at that, I was going to point at that side of the table. But these guys are all pros. That's actually how I met each of you individually. I had a friend hire you for sorry, Manny. I'm pointing. I don't know if it points.
That's true.
If it points. But I had a friend hire Manny for an audio
To record an album.
Yeah, to record an album, and then the same guy. He wanted to record a music video. Hired David, and I met them like a year apart from each other.
Yep. He came into my recording studio. Joel came into my recording studio to record a voiceover for one of the songs, actually, and that is how we met in my
voice
studio.
work. This is the full circle.
Literally, right? And
That's a big
look,
one
and
because,
now
like,
we're
it's
voice actors together.
Yeah,
It's
people don't
crazy.
realize that this is just a group entirely of performers, and
Yeah,
I think that's something we
literally.
kind of like.
I mean, you play guitar, you
Go
perform,
over-
I
don't
play
you?
guitar, but my
Even
voice.
if you don't sing, it
You're
doesn't matter.
literally
You're
on
still a
stage,
performer.
like every week
Yeah.
for like
Even-
thousands. Like,
No,
You
you
don't have to sing to
sing
be a
too, right?
performer.
You sing too. You should sing for us.
Yeah, totally.
You should
Yeah,
sing
here
for
we
us.
go.
He's actually taking
Auto
over
tune,
as the bard in
Javi.
the
You got the
campaign.
auto tune ready? No, definitely not. I'm in the background.
I think everybody here.
I was gonna say we should have singing in the rain. Just like put the camera on him, and then like somebody else starts singing.
Yeah.
Every every person here should be put on the spot the way I keep getting put on the spot.
Well, you
wanted to
chose
be
the
it.
bard.
You
You
wanted to be a
chose the performer.
Tristan was going in. Tristan was
That
doing
has
it.
been some of my favorite content for sure. Your
I think so.
improv was, I think, #1 moment in my
Totally.
eyes so
I
far.
agree.
That
I
was
agree.
the craziest thing that I've ever seen at the table, and I'm so excited to see more of it. We are all very, very excited to see more of it.
Dude, I just
For
picture
sure.
us all walking, like wherever we go, and we're like whistling that song as we're
Yeah,
walking.
I
That's,
mean,
that's our
literally.
like marching song now.
Literally,
My
I
bro-
sing
my
it around my
brother-in-law
house.
can't stop singing
I
it.
sing it
That's
around my
awesome.
house. My daughter probably knows it by
Yeah.
now.
I actually
we
do
all-
sing. My
we've all
nephew
been
sings it
showing
too.
That's
Well,
so
I
funny.
love it.
I will say now that we've talked about how they met, do you want to segue into what happened with Arlyn?
Yeah,
Yes.
let's go.
I was,
All
like,
right.
I was
So,
like, how did Manny and David meet?
well, a mommy and a dad. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going there. But let's start with Arlyn, right? Because that's how
Yeah,
our
that
side
started
started.
with Arlyn.
that
and
is how it
kind of
started.
brought
And we
in-
gotta like hurry things up because we have so much else to talk about too that I don't want to miss out on as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
But basically, I believe Arlyn has already explained in one of the sessions that he is not from Manshire. I believe the rest of you are from Manshire, right? Or close by, I guess. in the
Yeah,
region?
everybody's within
Yeah.
the region.
Within the region of Manshire,
other than Arlyn.
Arlyn is the only one that is not from Manshire. He's actually from a village called Valewood. We'll go deeper into Valewood, I guess, in another session or something like that. Essentially, he comes from a line of adventurers, and I think a little earlier, or we could, yeah. But yeah, so he comes from a line of adventurers, and something happened in Valewood where one of the dragons from the horde that came destroyed the town, and the two main adventurers, heroes that were there were his parents. And so they decided to fight back and therefore gave their life to protect Arlyn and the village. And so, I mean, he was orphaned, right? And in that, his father wielded Trident, which is, in the opener, the sword that Arlyn references that he's looking for, because in the middle of that fight, Trident disappeared. And so he's trying to find his father's sword. And he carries around his family shield as well. And so what happened was then Arlyn got basically moved to be with his grandmother. So he went down to Manshire, and she lived in Manshire. And so he was there a few months, roughly like 5 months or so, 5 or 6 months, when he knew it was his calling to go out, find Trident, basically avenge his parents, and become an adventurer just like his parents were, even though he had some training, but he never left Valewood ever. And so he's fresh to all of this. So that's kind of where it started with Arlyn at his grandmother's house, where, she was preparing him to go off on his big adventure. And so he went off, and he was by himself. I believe his grandmother had handed him a flyer,
Yeah,
to
she
which,
hooked him up.
segue to this, like, last week's episode, handed him a flyer to basically try out to join
Waking
as a
Dawn.
recruit the Waking Dawn, the mercenary group.
Interesting.
And so he was on his way to go meet with them and start this like tryout process to be an adventurer with the Waking Dawn and all this. And so on his way, he was going down the tree line through the forest, and he heard some singing and banging on a drum. And so there was Rodrick, right?
Greatest performer.
Yes. The question is, should I start from there, or should I go a little bit back too?
I say
Go a little
Let's
back.
go
What
a
do
little back
what do
and
the
then- and then meet
other
there.
characters know? Because that's kind of big, right?
Yeah, there
That's true.
are
We know
parts
very
to
little.
Rodrick that haven't been exposed
So
to.
then
if
let's
that
not
hasn't-
spoil.
Yeah, I was gonna say if that
Yeah.
hasn't kind of come to light
Oh,
for
man.
even session 0 stuff, then that'll I think
Correct.
be best held for a little later. Then still.
Definitely.
Okay, cool. So then I'll start with Rodrick from when he was kind of found by Arlyn.
Okay.
I forget the name of the other NPC. Do you remember it?
Man, I'm really having to
I
check through
forget
some
the name,
stuff. Yeah, I'll try and pull it up in a second.
Okay,
in the
okay,
notes.
we'll try to find it. So he runs across two people, one being Rodrick, and the other one being Rodrick's manager.
Essentially,
right?
yes.
Essentially. So Rodrick is out pretty much on expedition trying to find the largest crowds that he can find so that he can showcase his musical ability, his singing ability, just his ability to perform. He's a triple threat. He's an actor. He's a dancer. He's a singer. And
Haven't
he just
seen
wants
him dance
and,
yet.
and he just wants to
Does
show the
everything.
whole world.
We can't get any backstory on like where his talent came from or like nothing like that.
I could give you a little
He's a
bit if you
natural,
really
he's
want.
the best.
I would
I
love
don't
a
know.
tiny.
I
would
want
love
to
just
figure it out as a character, though. Like,
So-
I
so
love those moments.
I
you know?
can give you a little bit where it's not super spoily.
Okay,
Please.
go for
Okay.
it.
So and it will provide a little bit of backstory to the character, so you guys understand where he's coming from a little bit more. But and the audience will know, no metagaming for anybody.
I just want to
All
know
right?
where
I
this
think you have
came
said something
from,
about,
like-
maybe, unless I'm thinking of a whole other game that I'm in, about schooling. You've had some education in music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank God nobody made me roll for that one.
All right.
Yeah. So this is the thing.
So
is-
he definitely did it. That's what it means.
so Rodrick, he comes from a forest. He's from a tribe of wood elves, right?
Okay.
He is actually half elf, half human, right? And we won't get into too much detail about who his father is or what his father did. All that we need to know is that in this tribe of wood elves, he grew up without his dad because his dad died because he was already much older.
We did
when he
have
was
that
born.
interaction, and I believed that one.
There is
Correct.
a shortcoming for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He grew up.
it's already edited.
Yeah, he grew up without his dad. So, what's it called? He grew up with his mom and the elders of the tribe, kind of telling him things about his dad, right? So the big details about Rodrick's dad is that he was an amazing songwriter and an amazing singer. Cool. That's all he knows about him. They just rave on and on about him. All the entire tribe just raves about him. They've created this ornate statue of him in his grave. That's how much they like revered him, right?
Okay.
So Rodrick has big shoes to fill, which he doesn't know anything about. Now keep in mind, there was no other musician in that tribe. They were all just obsessed with his dad.
But he's
That's-
heard his dad's songs through the tribe, right? Like, okay, all right. I don't want to get too deep.
That's
All
how
right.
it's gonna be when Cleave gets his own tribe, his own village back, but it's gonna be a statue of Calagon.
So the issue is Rodrick was raised with the amount of confidence to fill a prince and the
Noticed
amount
that.
of training to fill a pauper.
I love that.
That's kind of the gist behind
so
Rodrick's
funny.
character is he's very confident. Now he's not bad. He did
You know, he's good.
so he inherited a book from his mom of his dad. It's what he has used to self-teach himself how to write songs.
So
That
you're
is
a
the-
celebrity's child. That makes so
Basically.
much sense now.
A celebrity within that tribe.
Yeah,
no
but
one
still.
knows.
Local
It is
celebrities.
a completely like unknown tribe, deep in the forest. There is so much more to what happened before that.
Okay.
Okay,
Right?
we'll figure that
So-
out as
but-
time goes.
But yeah,
That makes you want to name drop like random Claremont celebrities. We have a few little ones that I'm like, oh, it's like
That's so funny.
so now he's out and he's pretty much trying to showcase his ability because he feels like he has these shoes to fill because everyone revered his father so much. So he wants to show the world that he can fill the same shoes as his father. Now he does carry around that book, and I will drop this because we did talk about this in one of the sessions recently. He refuses to use the book. He refuses to use the book because he's trying to make a name for himself, not use his dad's songs. Okay?
I
So he just
see.
uses them for inspiration, but he will never show anybody the book because it's like, for him, it's the most prized possession.
Yeah,
it's super
it's sacred.
cherished.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also the secret to being the most famous performer that's ever lived.
Nice.
And he doesn't want to reveal that to anybody. So that's Rodrick. That's his little backstory.
Love that.
Love that. Let's go back to where Rodrick finds Arlyn.
Right.
So Rodrick, along the way, he encounters this person. If you want to drop a little bit more about this NPC.
I really don't remember his name. Large guy. There wasn't a ton that we had put together on him, other than just like a starting place that you guys were working together outside the city gates of Manshire proper.
Yeah. So he met this person. The person said, "Hey, well, I can pretty much negotiate your deals for you, and then the whole world will know your name, right?" This guy wasn't even very good at his job either. He kind of swindled Rodrick a little bit.
For sure.
And they were trying to get some money, right? So Arlyn walks up with his fancy armor, his fancy sword,
His fancy hair.
his fancy hair. And of course catches their eye. So the manager walks up to Arlyn and starts talking to him about Rodrick's ability to write a song about him.
Yes, I remember this.
Yeah. So
Killer.
So Rodrick, he then talked to his manager off to the side and he said, "Hey, I'm just trying to let you know I'm scared of small crowds, and this is really putting me on the spot to perform to one."
Wow, I didn't even remember that quote until
Yeah.
now, and it makes sense from last week's
He's
episode.
stuck with it. He's been killing it all
Oh man,
So-
scared of small crowds. That's good.
So yeah, he only likes large crowds. This is kind of funny because me and Manny do music, and there's a lot in Rodrick that is in me. Like I loathe
Oh my gosh.
small settings.
I agree.
That's so
I loathe
funny.
It's harder.
It's
when I used to go in
It's harder,
front of a
yeah.
class and give like a class presentation, somebody had to take my paper away from me because I was shaking it and I couldn't read it. It was
Yeah.
so bad.
Hundreds of people is a blur. That's not.
But
That's
dude,
not even people.
Correct. You
I
don't
can-
even see faces at
I
that
can
point.
stand in front of over 1,000 people like
Yeah.
it's literally nothing.
It's
It
nothing,
doesn't
yeah.
even phase
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
4 people, I'm like,
Yeah, literally,
It's
like on a
horrifying.
weekly basis, singing in front of thousands of people, not a big deal. The scariest thing I think we've ever done was perform a showcase in front of 2 judges.
yeah.
Yikes.
I don't know
Yep,
though.
that would be tough.
Those,
Yep.
those
It was so scary.
those metal band days though in front of
Yeah.
like 12
Yeah, in
people.
front of
That
12
was
people.
fun.
That
Those were
was
good
fun. That
times.
was fun.
But we each had separate.
But yeah,
events,
so
but-
he ends, well to get back into Rodrick ends up writing a song about Arlyn. It's kind of a jokey song about his armor and how tight it is on him. Arlyn likes it, and the manager then tells Arlyn, which he had no right to. He tells Arlyn, "If you give me 2 coin, I'll sell him to you."
I don't.
It was a rough
I don't
contract
remember it that
deal,
way,
but
though.
it was
He
definitely
sold
like.
them the
hold
contract.
on.
Yeah.
Did he really? Did he offer or did
I was gonna
Arlyn
say,
offer?
no, Arlyn
I
offered
think
to
Arlyn
buy him
offered
off
to
of
buy
him,
him.
and so
Yes,
he just
so
had terrible
so
contract.
I think so if I remember correctly, Arlyn enjoyed the boost of confidence that he got from Rodrick's song so much that he's like, "Hey, I don't have a crew. I kind of want you to stick along with me." But he figured there was some sort of contractual obligation or something like that with this guy. And so, and he's hearing it now from Arlyn's side, because the whole thing is like, oh, he owns Rodrick. Well, that's the joke, yes. But he essentially was like, I need a partner. I need a partner that's going to come with me into war, essentially.
Yeah.
And, conquer, whatever threat comes along. And, he felt, super inspired by Rodrick. And so that's when he's like, I need you to come with me. And he offered, I believe, the manager 2 gold to buy Rodrick from him. And Rodrick has no idea, obviously, this is going on in Arlyn's head. So all he sees is I'm being sold off like a slave? What's going on?
That's so funny.
And
I mean,
so
a manager to their musician.
to another manager,
Yeah.
right?
Life is rough.
I was gonna say, is Kesha a slave? Is Britney Spears?
There's an argument for it.
There is an argument for it, right? And so Arlyn
Britney
was
Spears
like,
wrote a song
all right,
called-
I want him to come with me. And then at the same time, he's like, wait a minute, he felt me feel inspired, but is he going to survive out there with me? Because he knows there's threat out there. So he made some makeshift bow out of twigs and twine and was like, can you shoot this? And he rolled a nat 20 and just went pew with some like terrible little bow. And he's like, yeah, you're coming with me. And that is the beginning of their relationship. So they make their way into where? Into
the Floating Buffalo, which was what the Waking Dawn members had thought was still a tavern, but it had apparently been sold out and made into a cheese shop instead.
Yes, correct. That is true. And so that's where they met with them, the Waking Dawn, which is not the members of the Waking Dawn that we met in the previous episode. It was other members that were referenced in the episode, which were it was Jameson
Kid.
Niall, and Elliot.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Elliot Kid.
Yeah, you got them.
I'm starting to remember now.
This is great.
Starting to
Guys.
remember.
Yeah, so Jameson and Elliot Kid were brothers.
Yeah.
Where Jameson is the eldest, and he was kind of the leader of the troop.
Mm-hmm. Correct. This little pretty boy, fancy pants type of paladin fighter thing.
Yeah,
fighter guy.
He was like strong, but like clearly in his head about it, as far as just like, oh yeah, like I'm the best. Like you have to look at me, make sure that everything's about me. Like he definitely gave Rodrick a run for his money.
He was
in that
Rodrick
regard.
and Arlyn put into one person.
I was just gonna say the same exact thing.
100%
That's so
Rodrick
funny.
and Arlyn put into one. Elliot was this quiet rogue.
Yeah, he didn't speak
young boy
at
that
first.
didn't speak at all.
Poor kid.
And then Niall was a wizard, sorcerer,
I don't know what he was.
wizard,
He
something
was
like
a
that.
something.
He was a something. He was a mage.
He had a
buff.
magical
I mean,
He was
scepter,
buff, bald,
and he was
scarred,
jacked.
and
Yeah.
a terrifying human being, right? And so
And very mean.
he was extremely mean,
he was
like
really
terrible.
Especially to us.
He
was not-
yeah,
wasn't good to
definitely
us at all.
mean to you
Yeah,
guys.
he had a little issue with the races that
He had
seemed to
just
be
a
more
touch of
like
the racism.
monstrous.
Just
you
a
know?
touch of the racism.
He was like, yeah, part monster, part dragon type. He's like, yeah, no, I don't dig that stuff. So
Yeah, it's okay. I'm used
not
to
a
it.
fan of these two.
So we met with them, and he borrowed Jameson's bow, I believe.
He never gave it back.
He never gave it back. Well, we'll get into that. But he borrowed Jameson's bow, and we went off, and they took us to this cavern system, basically saying that there was a drake or something that was attracting tons of animals from like the outer regions into this cave system that I believe because of the wars and the dangers, they were being used as like transportation ways between the different kingdoms and all that. But it was now infiltrated by all these creatures. So Arlyn and Rodrick are like, well, mostly Arlyn. Rodrick's just like, I guess I'm just along for the ride, right?
Well, I mean, when you force your slave to come with you. Listen,
They were trying to treat us like that too. We were just hunting for meat.
Yeah.
We went up into the mountains to go hunt, and then like this guy shows up and he's like, new recruits. I think my first word was like, no. I don't know you.
So yeah, so basically we went to the mouth of this cavern. We were going through, and we saw these two figures out in the distance, and that is where the four met. Yeah, you know, that's where our characters met, and from there it went into this like deep labyrinth exploration kind of thing. It was like this
for sure.
ancient temple kind of.
I will say, if we go into the deep labyrinth, we could spend an entire
We
session
will be
talking about the
literally
deep
for
labyrinth.
hours and hours. So we could just
definitely have to like touch on some of it.
Yeah, we'll touch
I'll
base
kind
on
of
it.
Summarize
Summarize
a
it,
little bit.
yes.
Generally, guys went through. Everybody had different experiences inside, but everything was pitch black. They started walking through this bioluminescent water. They eventually were able to reveal certain like imprints, engravings, carvings on different walls that each had like the form of a different person. And so with each appearance, they saw different things that they saw as different puzzles, and they basically know factually that the chains that Cleave now has around him were basically part of one of said puzzles. But they never got to get back to it, unfortunately.
Yeah. There was
True.
I picked up the chains, and a voice called to me in my head that only I could hear. Said something to the effect of, "Bring the chains to me, my son." And I was just like, "Dad." So
That's the whole dad joke thing.
so that's become like
Yes.
a running gag where I guess my guy Cleave thinks that his dad is somewhere in those caves, wondering where his chains are at. There was a point where we destroyed a giant
heart
thing that we
that
found.
was underground. It was still
Yeah.
like beating.
Yeah, so now Cleave thinks that his dad is brokenhearted. It's a whole ordeal for him.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
so, we continued trying to figure out this labyrinth. I think the most important thing that we should touch base on for the labyrinth was the murals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
The
murals
amount
were
of
biggie.
different murals that we encountered, and we encountered some more during the first few sessions.
Yeah,
when we
for
were
sure.
still there.
Yeah.
But like the murals were crazy, which we'll get into how we got our name, and we referenced it very briefly in one of the episodes, but we'll get into that. But we found this crazy mural that it was like this dragon with like this crown like
It was a crown
Horn.
of yeah,
Crown
like,
of
like
horns, I
bones,
guess?
like horns, like the dragon kind
Correct.
of just. It's like built into him as though he himself were just kind of birthed with that sovereignty, if you will.
Yes. Explain to us a little bit more about the different murals, because I mean you created them, so
Yeah,
you remember them a little better.
There were a few of different individuals, each showing different powers. There was one room with all sorts of people with different elements, all each kind of a master of a singular element. And there was one saddened figure that seemed to be kind of outcast from the rest of them. They later saw a mural of a child that, upon completing one of the puzzles, turned into the same exact picture of that man, or at least the same face. And so they saw the child become the man in essence, as they got to slowly piece together some of these story elements just bit by bit. But that was definitely not the entire story, as within those halls there was this story going about people and elements and combining elements and people coming and rising to power and falling and so on and so forth. Over on the second tier, if you will, there was a whole different set of things that they all saw, where there were monsters, dragons, elementals, people, and beasts. And so they got to see different murals of some of these creatures working together, and especially at some point coming against mankind, where specifically only one dragon with a crown of horns seemed to be defending the man within that mural. As they went to the final mural of sorts in that lower half, we'll say, they came across one final mural broken into 4 pieces. On each of these columns, there were 2 figures. And on the first that they saw as they walked in, they could see an orc standing upright and strong. They saw it from the side profile, where this orc is standing there holding his hand out to what looked to be a horse. And from the side, you could see just packs and equipment, nothing specific other than he had one horn raised up at the front of his head. And when Cleave went forward to analyze this mural, he looked to the side to talk to the rest of the party and lined his little swoop of hair up perfectly to this horn, as they all now identified Cleave as the orc in the image.
Mm-hmm.
As they looked around, they saw hands out to each of these horses, their own figures, all standing around them carved into the walls.
Which the other guys
Yes.
did not seem happy about this.
The Waking Dawn did not seem very
Oh, they were
They-
furious. They're
they
like,
were
what
so
the
mad.
heck?
They were like,
Who
who
are
are
you?"
you guys?
Yeah.
Why are you in the murals?
It's probably because
And-
they don't have etchings of them in the wall.
Yeah, you
they're a
know.
little jealous, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Kind of the coolest guys in the room.
They got really scared. I tried to convince them that we were like the spirits of the temple. We were like, we have brought you here to give you your destiny.
This is
So-
what I'm talking about. It's hard to be stoic and like serious when he's throwing all that stuff out.
That was a lie that came straight from fear. That was
Yes.
they were getting violent. It sounded
Yes.
like.
They were
That's
pretty
right.
strong too, yeah. Definitely, especially like these guys. I tortured these poor souls. These guys went all this time without any powers, any abilities.
Yes,
any,
Yeah,
we were
I fell off a
commoners,
crab and
no
almost
power
died.
items.
Do you remember
Yeah.
that? I jumped on a giant crab,
Yes, you
fell
jumped
off,
on a
and
giant
then
crab.
I'm almost dead
Correct.
just from falling.
Yes. So,
So
that
good.
I think that was the coolest thing about the pre-sessions, is that we were just commoners with a dream of adventuring or performing, I guess, right? Or, life conservation. And so we were just like nobodies, essentially. We had no powers. We had no magic items. We were just straight from the village, essentially. And we went through this entire thing, and that kind of gave us, like, that room gave us, like, purpose, right?
Yeah.
And that's outside the fourth wall, because we were like, how are we going to write this into the characters? And it turns out that Calagon's the one that kind of brought up the actual name, and they were like, that's pretty good, right? But outside the fourth wall, right?
Yeah.
As soon as we saw that, we were like, the Four Horsemen. It's the Four Horsemen. That's the name. That's the name. And like, we named the campaign. We named like everything. And so everything just kind of came together in that session. I feel like for the first time, it was like, this is it. Like, this is it. And
I forgot exactly how I brought it. I know it was a situation where we were not being like the idea of what we wanted to be. So I was like, I thought we were the Four Horsemen. Like, is that how it came about, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I thought we were these, the people that had more purpose than we even knew, and then we're acting like this. And I think that's how the name came about live, right, in the session.
yeah,
everybody's got this kind of like
Arlyn's like,
grand
wait.
thing now.
The Four Horsemen, like, that has a really nice ring to it, you know?
Yeah.
And then they kind of, I think for the first time when we met the guard, Rodrick, right?
Yes.
The Dragonborn. I believe the previous episode, that's the first time that we introduced ourselves as
The Four Horsemen.
the Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
They said the thing. They said the thing.
They said the thing, except we don't have horses yet.
I was gonna say,
Eventually.
You said it like
things
10
that
sessions
lined
in,
up,
though.
The amount of things that lined up for these guys, based on building their characters, basically all completely separate, was incredible.
Yes.
Because part of the murals and part of the lore behind this stuff was based on these kind of 5 primordial races that existed that they got to see breakdowns of in some of these murals. Where at the center in one of them, which I believe made it onto stream, you get to see mankind at the center of it all.
Yes.
And in each
That's on
corner,
Instagram, too.
You get to see one of the corners shows monsters, one of them shows dragons, one of them shows beasts, and one of them shows elementals.
And
this
that's
was
us.
always part of the plan. Before these guys even like created their characters, no input from me, no railroading of any sort, and they just each happened to be some sort of hybridized form of humankind mixed with one of these 4 different like monstrous races or what have you.
Like, the unicorn, I believe, represented magic. That's how I took it.
Yep.
Which is
Absolutely.
elvish magic, right? Which would be Rodrick, and
Or
then
beauty, I guess.
elemental
Lineage, yeah.
He said beauty.
beauty, or beauty, I guess, grace,
just
right?
being the best, the most
Being
famous. People know it by name.
Yeah. Like low key, everybody wants to see a unicorn.
Yeah, and then you
People
had
see
the
monsters.
beast being the orc, half orc, half humanoid,
Oh, wait.
right? The dragon, right? Obviously with the dragonborn
monster,
race.
monster.
Yeah,
Like
monster.
the monster,
Part
sorry,
monster
yes,
would be orc, yeah.
part monster, and then
I want to
the
reiterate
elemental
really quick
one.
on Twitch, Spars, that was not planned.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
it
was-
100% was not
Not
planned
even a little bit.
at
It
all,
was so
No.
good.
and it just worked.
that's just-
Like, we didn't even catch it
That's
until
just
that day.
how we 4 fit into the mythos that Tristan had created.
Correct.
Let alone when he realized we also fit into the description. Go ahead.
The description of the
descriptions
Four
for the
Horsemen.
Four Horsemen, yeah. Now, I kind of want
No.
to. No,
Yeah.
that's right, because we're not gonna try to stick too close to it.
No.
Yeah, that's
But
Correct.
for
But it's just
the
happened, though,
actual,
yeah.
But well, we can make it a fun challenge for the viewers. A fun challenge for the viewers
try to put it out as
is
a poll. Try
go-
to figure out who is what horseman.
who is what. You know what? I'm gonna make a poll right now. Who
I like that.
out of the 4 horsemen here?
By the way, the
Which one is
polls
that?
are on YouTube.
Yes, they are on
Yeah.
YouTube, but I do post the questions on Twitch too that you can just answer regularly. So, who embodies which of the 4 horsemen from Revelation? So
do we want to
that's
start
the
with just
key.
one and just say like who is death, and then offer up the 4, or what is Arlyn out of death, pestilence, so on and so forth.
Or we could just make it a chat instead of a poll because there's a lot of combinations
Yeah, let
and
them
all
go
that.
in. Yeah.
Let's make it a chat. Who is who essentially? Who is what are the 4? It was death, it's
Pestilence,
pestilence?
conquest, and war.
conquest, and war. Okay, so that's the question. Who embodies which horseman? And it all was honestly by mistake. Like, it was not on purpose. It was all after the fact that we were like, whoa. I'm talking like details, you know?
Yeah.
And so if you need to read up on it, go into Revelation, try to find the small excerpt about the 7 seals with the 4 horsemen and see who is who.
Yeah.
Who is who?
Because it's crazy. It really
It
is.
really
That was
is
fun. That
wild.
was a fun reveal
It
for
really
me for
lined
sure.
up.
That was another great
it is
moment where like
wild.
everybody's reactions of like, wait, okay, like how do we fit into these, you know? And we were able to give the full breakdown of like literally reading it verbatim, and everybody's like, oh, like, oh, this is cool. All right.
It was like 11 o'clock, and we're all like winding down the end of the session, and then we're just like, oh my god.
We all went home and watched 100 videos on the 4 horsemen.
Did we make the 4 horsemen? Yeah, it was crazy.
That's so funny.
It was so perfect. Again, all complete happenstance. Like there was no planning on anyone's part other than just me at one day being like, did these guys just hold on a second? Like,
We didn't even talk to each other about character creation.
No.
We were just like, let's
The
create our
farthest I went
characters.
was trying to tie my backstory to his.
Yeah, that's it. Let's create our characters. And I'm like, I've had this idea for Arlyn, which was going to be totally different. He was going to be a cleric. He was actually going to be a Tempest cleric, having to do with storms and everything. And the whole race thing, which I'm pretty sure we referenced it in the actual campaign, is he's the first of his actual race because his mother was an
made it
Asimar.
up.
that's huge because you just mentioned Tempest Cleric. I do want to note because we've had a lot of questions on this one as far as what system are we playing?
Oh, yes.
And so I referenced when speaking to Javi a second ago, D&D. However, that is not exactly what we're playing here at this table. You see, we're working on a few things behind the scenes, but we are primarily tracking in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rule set. But slowly over time, we're veering more and more from that because we do have aspects of different games such as Starfinder. We're doing a lot of like, I'll loosely call it homebrew because we're actually developing our own game.
Yeah, buddy.
And so with that, it has a lot more to do with the elements and new and unique creatures and concepts that are very fun and very interesting that I'm very excited to get to kind of show you guys as we bring it all together as one community. And
Totally.
Arlyn is one of those first steps. Arlyn is a race that does not exist within any of those other game sets up until this point and was created as kind of the embodiment of 2 different classic D&D races conjoined into one that's very fun.
Correct. Yes.
And
go for it, Joel.
We is a very generous term because Tristan is making his whole.
Oh,
I was just about to
100%.
say that again.
Tristan is writing this
he's
game
making all
system.
the
Yes.
It's
And he
Tristan.
has been for years
I've
at
only
this
got like
point.
1,000 pages so far, guys.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
He has been writing this whole entire game system for years now,
and it's also dairy free.
and it's also don't expect any milk items. And so once we put all this together, like one of the things that we talked about is like, hey Tristan, I know this is a passion that you've been slowly creating over time. This is very, very much the vision for us to make that the trial run of your game, right? And so at one point in the future, right, we will slowly be veering off from D&D 5e and going into a brand new game system written by Tristan that we will be the originators on this table,
I've
right?
got so many ideas for what that first session actually looks like.
Oh,
if we
man.
want to do a smaller campaign
gonna
with
be
it.
cool.
We've got so many things in store for you guys. But I will say, I will kind of give a slight spoiler. We're going to get to see a lot of that specifically within each of the Bastion systems.
Oh, sick.
So each of the Bastions is based on different elements from the game, and already some of the kind of like mosaics and murals and things of that sort that we've gotten to see have already referenced a lot of those things. So it's going to be for the players here at the table to try to figure out different elements, different aspects of what those might have meant for their characters moving forward.
Yes. So that's really exciting. Yeah, so back on Arlyn's race, he doesn't know. His mom was an Asimar, which an Asimar is humanoid mixed with a celestial being, right? Like half human, half angel or something. Basically. And then you have his father was a water, how do you pronounce it? Ganassi.
I always say Ganassi.
Ganassi.
Some people say genocide, but it sounds like genocide.
No, that's
Not
wrong.
a fan of that
That's
one.
got to be wrong.
I think we can all say genocide is wrong.
Yeah.
I've heard it a lot.
His father's a water Ganassi, right? And a water Ganassi is essentially a hybrid between a a humanoid and a genie,
Yeah,
djinn kind of being. And so therefore, like, my question was, I was like, I know these two characters that I had already had in mind forever for his parents. I was like, I want to create their son. But I talked to Tristan, I'm like, what would they make? What would they make? And so Tristan took it upon himself to write out an entire race with racial traits and everything for Arlyn, which Arlyn doesn't even know about. I know what the traits will be, but I don't even know what the race name is. And that is the best part. We saw a little glimpse on episode 1 or episode 2?
I don't remember.
One of them, where, you know, he shocked Calagon, right? He shocked Calagon, then basically, you know, went into this, like, Storm's Wrath, I believe is what the trait is called, where he just imbued electricity and lightning, and he has not been able to do that since. So he actually hasn't even tried since. So we'll see what happens. But that is like a glimpse of kind of what's going on with Arlyn, because people look at Arlyn like, what are you? And he's like, I don't even know, dude. Like, the first of my kind is his answer, because he's like, I have no idea. I don't look like my mom. I don't look like my dad. I don't look like anybody that I've met. Misty hair, light blue skin. It's weird. And he's not an Air Ganassi either, because he has seen Air Ganassi and they're not the same. Yeah. And so that's just all part of the fun also for me as a player, not knowing my character that well either, because he's hilarious. Discovering himself.
Because
me
and you are the exact opposite. I know exactly what I am, but I don't know who I'm going to be. You know exactly who you're going to be, but you don't know what you are.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that actually brings me back to the murals, because we've had a lot of questions regarding the murals, and that was kind of our first experience really getting to interact with them in that way, where prior to that point they'd felt power coming from each of these murals. There was one where the room shook when they got close, and when they felt the wall behind it, there were some voices that they heard in regards to some of these different murals. And then finally, Calagon being called by one of the murals was not the one to touch it, and instead Arlyn was. And in doing so, received this surge of power, and kind of pushing that into the dreams when everybody was asleep and or literally just knocked unconscious due to that power.
Yep.
We saw something that was very, very different, that basically only Arlyn knows at this point, but that dream was not meant for him, and that something within him was actually calling out for Calagon still. Yes. And so each of their dreams was, for whatever reason, linked in that moment, where Arlyn could now see Calagon and what he was dreaming, and he could see off into the distance while whatever this thing was calling out instead for Calagon, who he was calling prior, in hopes of getting Calagon to touch the mural. That was fun for me.
Missed opportunity.
That was awesome. Not only that, but that whole shock is what triggered his Storm's Wrath state. Yep. Because we're not gonna get into fourth wall metagaming, but he didn't do that himself. It just happened, right? And so that surge of power kind of just clear, poof, you know, and awakened that part of his race. Yeah. That he experienced for the first time. And so that was super cool how that was played off, because I didn't even catch that. We talked about it afterwards, and I was like, whoa, that's what worked. And so aside from that, you know, by that point, I guess to speedrun the rest of the pre-session so they know, we triggered a trap, water started slushing all over the place, right? Yep. Started rising us up to the top. We found out that we weren't trying to get rid of this Drake, that the Waking Dawn members were actually setting us up and were going to feed us as sacrifice to this dragon.
Yeah, they were really scared.
They had said something that confused them.
Yeah, and we were like, what? Are you kidding me? And so Arlyn was really pissed off at Jameson, and Jameson was a bit of a coward and all this stuff. So we dragged Niall left. Niall disappeared.
Yeah, he was
just
like,
dipped.
I'm out of here. These guys
Yeah.
are crazy. He already knew about the threat that was above. He said, nope.
Yep, Elliot became possessed by some crazy thing, right?
Elliot was the first to touch the heart that they were talking about
Yes.
previously, which would have been a fun thing for anyone else, but ended up being that just an NPC because somebody was telling him basically to do just that. They're like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Well,
Elliot touched
go ahead,
it.
poke
That's
let
what
go.
happened? Is
That's
that
what happened. He
that
touched
shit?
the heart.
I
Yeah.
thought he had that power and he just
Nope.
like
Nope.
I didn't even
That
make
was
any
something that
connection.
could have happened for any single one of
so
you guys.
funny.
Wow.
That is a reveal
We've
to me.
done-
That's a
Dodged
reveal.
so
Yes.
many
So that's
bullets,
what
dude.
happened. That was part of the trap. So he became like possessed, monster
He
kind of
also gave him
thing.
powers though. We probably lost some other powers we could have had.
Yeah, that's true.
I was gonna say,
And
there were
he
definitely a
was
few things that you guys kind of skipped over, but
true. We
We'll see
we
it's
were
on.
also getting drowned by water
It
with
was- yeah,
our
it was a crazy
speed
time.
run out of there.
Dude,
so
can you
we had to
imagine-
wraggle
Can
him.
you imagine if Rodrick would have touched it? Like
That would have been crazy.
Well, with him being like super powerful and stuff like that,
Oh,
like
okay,
becoming an
okay.
animal.
he is the most powerful of the four.
He
as
is
we
the
all
most
know
powerful of the
factually.
four. So essentially, yeah,
Barry, though.
that's what happened. Cleave was able to tie up Elliot so he wasn't like raggling around. Arlyn dragged Jameson into this water portal that boosted us upward into the top floor, which is where we were stuck at, right, for the beginning of
started,
this campaign. And so when we came up there we met Arrendor the dragon. So one of the questions actually from Spars is...
Spars answered the question, by the way,
What?
about the four horsemen.
Oh, what's his guess?
Oh,
Did he
I
get it
had to
right?
think about that
Cleave is
one
death,
for a bit.
Calagon is famine. Arlyn is war. Rodrick is conquest. That was spot on.
That's
I'm
correct.
gonna say it.
Beautiful.
That
Yeah,
is
that's
correct.
awesome.
Round of
Dang.
applause for Spars.
Hey, Spars.
Rodrick has the bow. Arlyn has the
sword.
sword. Calagon has the scales and the farming and all
Agriculture
kind of
stuff.
Agriculture,
power
yeah.
background that we'll see more and more of.
When Tristan was trying to put the last touch together, he was just like, the one thing that doesn't quite fit is just like, how do I say that Calagon had scales in his hand? And I was like, what do you mean? Because I was taking it the way that we ended up figuring it out.
In
It's just
D&D,
like,
right?
He has scales in his hand. He's a
He's
dragon.
a dragon.
And he was just like, oh! It's all there.
and Cleave has the beasts and all of that and
Yeah,
all
he's
the
got a lot more that
animals
we'll
and
get to see,
everything.
but he's got already a dark past with death and with animals and
Yeah.
how
Yes.
he interacts with that. And I'm very excited to see all that.
Oh, I love it so much.
Great forward.
I love it. So aside from
Arrendor,
that,
though,
oh,
the
go for it,
dragon
Arrendor.
did not originally have a name when you guys asked him, and he told the group that they could instead call him Arrendor,
Ah,
as he admired the original,
and he's
and
gonna
he wanted to
unite
be
the
like
nations.
him in uniting the nations once more.
Okay, so another Spars question. VIP. Thank you. So,
Killing
what
it.
kind of dragon was the one that gave the party their abilities, and is there a berry connection?
Ah, yes.
That's a good
No way.
question.
Yes.
Because we did find Barry.
Up at the
We don't
top.
even know that, so that's good.
Come on, Tristan.
The
Is there a
purest-
connection?
That will likely be answered very, very soon. He was iridescent.
An iridescent.
However, he did not match up to any other draconic qualities that you guys are familiar with in times past.
Got it.
He did have the crown of horns, so we saw that that was a good kind of through line as far
Yep.
as some of those
The
murals.
murals.
But there was also another dragon on the opposing side with a
Yes.
crown of horns like that. So
And he was very dark and quite terrifying. Oh, let's brief point on that. We're hearing different voices. Calagon is hearing a totally different voice than we are,
Yeah.
right? Like it's this dark, like evil kind of sounding, drawing voice, while we are hearing the voice of Arrendor, I assume.
Are we?
Like it's I don't know, it's
Largely,
like
yes.
a like the
Yeah.
dragon Arrendor who's
Yeah.
like calling us to like our like
yeah, you guys have
mission.
heard Arrendor's voice a few times now, where he's
Yes.
kind of helping you along, but especially Arlyn.
Arlyn.
Arlyn seems to be hearing the voice.
Wait, did he
as
call
he
me his
gave
son?
each of them a
No.
different, kind of a different role in relation to the gifts of the dragon that he would like kind of empower them with.
Correct.
And so like he was like, yeah, you know, one of you will be my voice. One of you will like know my will and act on that. One of you will you know usher in the new era with certain abilities of mine and so on and so forth. But we'll get to see more as far as what his abilities are.
Correct.
We'll get to know more about that character. Get a better breakdown. As far as the Barry aspect, Barry was part of the murals, which was fun because he came from a kind of hidden mural that I didn't expect you guys to get necessarily.
The best one.
And so he was kind of a bonus feature, if you will, along with the gem that he was stored in. And he wasn't necessarily attached or connected to Arryn per se. He was another one that was entirely connected to whoever released him.
Oh.
So Barry's creation was purely because Calagon summoned him up. Had anyone else summoned up Barry, it would have come out as an entirely different creature.
Yes, he told me that behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Give us
See,
just
you told
one.
me that too.
Do you actually
Can you imagine a little orc?
I need to know. Wait, I need to
Rodrick
know
touched him,
what
what would it be?
Rodrick would have gotten.
Each one of them would have been based on their primordial counterpart.
Ah, okay, very good.
So,
very good.
like an imp.
He got like a squirrel.
So
He would have got a squirrel.
we know that
A little
those are
unicorn.
He would have
beast,
been a squirrel.
elemental,
No, he would
and monster.
Yes.
And then the final being dragon. So
Okay.
we got the
I
dragon
love
companion.
that.
Love Barry.
So, speed run, because we literally have 1 minute left before we go into intermission and then start our short session
Yeah, we're
for
basically-
this week. So, speed run. Let's see. We have, why does Calagon need to question his lineage? Well, because dragons are bad,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dragons are
And-
bad. People are pretty racist towards him because he's
And it might
part
maybe in
dragon
the
in a way.
bastions the knowledge might be there, but in Manshire there's
Yeah,
not a
there's
lot of
not
knowledge
much.
on where or why.
correct.
yeah.
Correct. So, what else? What is the greatest difficulty you find playing your character, and what about DMing? That's a
I
good
think
one.
we can
Yeah,
handle
we
that
can-
next time.
We can
Maybe.
hold off on
Hold
that.
off on that
for a
one? All right.
second.
We'll leave that for next insight check next month. So, the water in the vials. So, the water that filled this cavern system was actually bioluminescent water of some magical sort, right? So, it glowed all over. And so, we collected it in
bottled some.
vials just to
It was
like...
actually from the non-dairy farm.
Yes,
situation.
Calagon collected it in a
Yeah.
vial, and we've used it as a flashlight a couple times.
Yeah.
But now that Arlyn can cast light, like we don't really need it.
Still?
It's still a cool prop. It's a cool prop. Cool prop.
For sure.
Okay, so characters' missions. The characters' missions is essentially that Arryn had found out some rumors of a new war coming, right? A new war coming from the dragons.
Dragons have started kind
all
of
this
banding
stuff.
together for the first time, and now they are looking to make a push on a united front, and he's been privy to that. So he's
Yes.
like, all right, we got to do something.
So he's
guys."
like, let me find these 4 champions. And when we met him, he found us worthy rather than the Waking Dawn. And so therefore he chose us to be his champions and imbued parts of his power to us. And that is how we gained our abilities. And that's where session 1 starts, where we don't know anything about what we can do. We just feel different.
Although, per the 4 Horsemen's request, he has now taken them under his literal wing and is now having them protect their 4 families while they're away.
Oh, yes,
The
the
Waking Dawn
the
guys,
Waking Dawn. The Waking Dawn is protecting our families while they're away, which we alluded to that in the last
Oh
session
yeah,
too.
can we quick touch on the thing that we were gonna say, that he said he required 4 people or something like that, right? What did he say?
He said he required 4 people, and they took that as sacrifice.
As sacrifices, because they were like, dragons are all evil.
Oh my
That
gosh.
also is a reveal. That's
No
also
way.
something we didn't know.
That's
Oh, there
so
you go.
crazy.
I think, yeah. So I don't know if Tristan told me. I think I just kind of like.
That was something I kind of
caught
like
it. I don't know. Maybe he
sprinkled in
did
there
tell me.
that I didn't
But-
know if you guys
Wow.
caught
Yeah,
that.
I understood that. Yeah, they were like, because that was a big part of the discussion when Rodrick met him first, and when he said, "I need 4 people," Rodrick, I think, also took it as a sacrifice situation, and he just
Yes.
started naming. I think he
Yep.
went with the 3 guys that were trying to sacrifice us, and then I think he named one of us. He was just like, "Well, it's
Yeah,
not me."
he's like, that guy's not the best.
yeah.
It's probably one of us too. I don't know.
That's good.
Actually, I don't know. He
That's
bought him.
good. That's good. I
That's
love
so
that.
Final favorite moment, and to touch on that, because there are a lot of things that unfortunately you guys
There's
don't get
so
to hit on,
much.
and it kills me as GM. But final note before we head to break: did anybody, audience included, catch the fact that Rumgar tried to sacrifice Rodrick?
That one Tristan told me about. I had no
Wait.
idea. No idea.
Wait, what?
What?
Rumgar was trying to silence Calagon when he was telling him about the spiders in the sand, and he was like, "Psst, like, don't
Don't tell him.
Sacrifice.
And so he was letting Rodrick go die because Rodrick had been bullying him to the point of allowing him to go die in the sands.
That's
I
crazy.
love that.
How are
Okay.
we not going to bring that,
That won't
into-
impact my character.
That's what I'm saying. How are we not going to bring that in?
Yeah, he's a
man.
savage little orc. He's seen death and he's about it apparently.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's
we'll leave
crazy.
you guys with that for a moment as we take a moment to get situated, and we'll be right back with our proper session of the Four Horsemen.
See you guys.
Later.